Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's English Learning Podcast. I'm thrilled to have you here today. Whether you're listening from Tokyo, Paris, or anywhere else in the world, you're more than welcome. Today, we will discuss something really special. We're going to explore powerful English phrases for deep conversations so that you can add a bit of ornamentation to the conversation. What do I mean by deep conversations? I'm talking about meaningful discussions. Conversations that go beyond "how are you" and "the weather is nice today." These are conversations about life, emotions, dreams, and ideas. The kind of conversations that help you truly connect with people. By the end of this podcast, you'll learn over 40 powerful phrases. You'll know exactly when and how to use them. And you'll feel confident having deeper conversations in English. So grab a notebook if you can. Take notes on phrases that resonate with you. And let's get started. Let's start with the beginning. How do you open a deep conversation? You can't just jump straight into heavy topics. You need the right phrases to create that opening. Here are some powerful ways to start. Phrase 1, I've been thinking about. This phrase invites reflection. For example, I've been thinking about what makes people truly happy. It signals you want to discuss something meaningful. The other person will usually share their thoughts too. Phrase 2, what's your take on? This is a casual way to ask someone's opinion. For example, what's your take on work-life balance? It shows you value their perspective. People love being asked for their views. Phrase 3, I'm curious about your thoughts on. This phrase shows genuine interest. For example, I'm curious about your thoughts on friendship in the digital age. It's respectful and open-ended. The word curious creates a safe space for sharing. Phrase 4, have you ever wondered why? This phrase invites philosophical thinking. For example, have you ever wondered why some people fear change? It encourages the other person to think deeply. These conversations often become very interesting. Phrase 5, something's been on my mind lately. This is personal and vulnerable. For example, something's been on my mind lately about career and purpose. It shows you trust the other person. Vulnerability creates deeper connections. Try using one of these phrases this week. Start with someone you trust, maybe a close friend or family member. Notice how the conversation becomes more meaningful. Now let's move to our next section. Once the conversation starts, you need to share your views. But you want to do it thoughtfully. Here are phrases that help you express your perspective clearly. Phrase 6, from my perspective. This shows your view without claiming absolute truth. For example, from my perspective, success means different things to different people. It's humble and inviting. Phrase 7, the way I see it. This is slightly more casual. For example, the way I see it, we put too much pressure on ourselves. It signals you're sharing a personal view. Phrase 8, I've come to believe that. This shows your belief developed over time. For example, I've come to believe that failure is actually a gift. It suggests you've learned from experience. This adds weight to your words. Phrase 9, in my experience. This grounds your opinion in real life. For example, in my experience, the best relationships require honest communication. Personal experience makes your point more credible. Phrase 10, I tend to think that. This is softer and less absolute. For example, I tend to think that people are doing their best. It leaves room for other viewpoints. This is good for sensitive topics. Phrase 11, what strikes me most is. This highlights what matters to you. For example, what strikes me most is how resilient humans can be. It shows what captures your attention. These phrases help you contribute meaningfully. Remember, deep conversations are about exchange. You share, then you listen. Speaking of listening, let's talk about that next. Deep conversations require excellent listening. These phrases show you're truly engaged. They encourage the other person to continue sharing. Phrase 12, that's a really interesting point. This validates what someone just said. For example, that's a really interesting point about social media and loneliness. Follow it with a question or your own thought. Phrase 13, I hear what you're saying. This shows you understand their message. For example, I hear what you're saying about feeling overwhelmed at work. It creates empathy and connection. Phrase 14, help me understand. This asks for clarification without judgment. For example, help me understand what you mean by authentic living. It shows genuine curiosity. People appreciate when you want to truly understand them. Phrase 15, that resonates with me because. This creates a personal connection. For example, that resonates with me because I've felt the same way about aging. Sharing similar experiences deepens the bond. Phrase 16, tell me more about. This is simple but powerful. For example, tell me more about that turning point in your life. It encourages the person to go deeper. 3 simple words can open entire stories. Phrase 17, what do you mean by? This seeks clarity on specific terms or ideas. For example, what do you mean by living intentionally? Don't assume you understand everything. Asking for clarity prevents misunderstandings. Phrase 18, so what you're saying is. This is a paraphrasing technique. For example, so what you're saying is that quality matters more than quantity in relationships. It confirms you understood correctly. The other person can agree or clarify further. These listening phrases are crucial. They transform a conversation from one-sided to collaborative. Great conversations are like a dance. Both people move together. When someone shares something you agree with, build on it. These phrases help you expand the conversation. Phrase 19, absolutely, and to add to that. This shows strong agreement plus contribution. For example, absolutely, and to add to that, I think timing also matters. You're validating and extending the idea. Phrase 20, that's exactly how I feel, especially when. This shares common ground with specifics. For example, that's exactly how I feel, especially when it comes to taking risks. Specific examples make agreement more meaningful. Phrase 21, you've hit on something important there. This emphasizes the value of their point. For example, you've hit on something important there about the role of forgiveness. It makes the person feel heard and valued. Phrase 22, that connects with what I was thinking about. This links ideas together. For example, that connects with what I was thinking about regarding purpose and meaning. It shows you're actively engaging with their thoughts. Phrase 23, building on what you just said. This explicitly extends their idea. For example, building on what you just said, maybe that's why so many people feel disconnected. You're creating a collaborative exploration. Agreement doesn't mean the conversation ends. Use these phrases to keep it flowing. Deepen it further. Not all deep conversations involve agreement. Sometimes you see things differently. Here's how to disagree respectfully and thoughtfully. Phrase 24, I see it a bit differently. This is gentle disagreement. For example, I see it a bit differently when it comes to technology's impact. You're not attacking their view. You're offering an alternative. Phrase 25, that's one way to look at it, though I wonder if. This acknowledges their view before presenting yours. For example, that's one way to look at it, though I wonder if there's also value in solitude. It's diplomatic and thoughtful. Phrase 26, I understand where you're coming from, but. This shows empathy before disagreement. For example, I understand where you're coming from, but I've had a different experience. The but should be soft, not confrontational. Phrase 27, have you considered that? This presents an alternative perspective as a question. For example, have you considered that some people need structure to feel free? Questions are less threatening than statements. Phrase 28, I respectfully disagree because. This is direct but polite. For example, I respectfully disagree because I think motivation comes from within. Always explain your reasoning. Phrase 29, that's an interesting perspective, though my experience has been. This balances respect with personal truth. For example, that's an interesting perspective, though my experience has been quite different with mental health. You honor their view while sharing yours. Remember, disagreement can deepen conversations. It's not about winning. It's about understanding different viewpoints. The best conversations include respectful disagreement. Deep conversations often touch on emotions. These phrases help navigate emotional territory. Phrase 30, how did that make you feel? This is a classic for good reason. For example, how did that make you feel when you heard the news? It invites emotional honesty. Phrase 31, I can imagine that must have been. This shows empathy for their experience. For example, I can imagine that must have been incredibly difficult. Choose the right emotion word: difficult, exciting, overwhelming, liberating. Phrase 32, what was going through your mind when? This explores thoughts alongside feelings. For example, what was going through your mind when you made that decision? Thoughts and feelings are connected. Phrase 33, it sounds like you're feeling. This is empathetic reflection. For example, it sounds like you're feeling uncertain about the future. Name the emotion you're hearing. But say it sounds like to leave room for correction. Phrase 34, that must have taken a lot of courage. This validates difficult emotional experiences. For example, that must have taken a lot of courage to walk away from that job. Acknowledging someone's strength is powerful. Phrase 35, what's been the hardest part about? This goes deeper into struggle. For example, what's been the hardest part about this transition for you? It shows you care about their challenges. Phrase 36, what gives you hope about? This explores positive emotions. For example, what gives you hope about the future? Not all deep conversations are sad. Hope, joy, and gratitude are deep too. Emotions are at the heart of human connection. These phrases help you navigate them with care. Practice emotional vocabulary. The more emotion words you know, the better. Questions drive deep conversations forward. Here are some powerful question structures. Phrase 37, what would you do if? This explores hypothetical situations. For example, what would you do if money wasn't a concern? Hypotheticals reveal values and dreams. Phrase 38, what's something most people don't understand about? This invites unique insights. For example, what's something most people don't understand about being an introvert? It asks for insider knowledge. Phrase 39, what's changed your mind about? This explores personal growth. For example, what's changed your mind about relationships over the years? Change indicates learning and evolution. Phrase 40, if you could go back, what would you? This reflects on past experiences. For example, if you could go back, what would you tell your younger self? Reflection creates wisdom. Phrase 41, what does concept mean to you personally? This makes abstract ideas concrete. For example, what does success mean to you personally? Personal definitions are always interesting. Everyone has unique interpretations. Phrase 42, what keeps you up at night? This explores worries and concerns. For example, what keeps you up at night about climate change? It's intimate and honest. Questions are powerful conversation tools. They show curiosity and care. They invite the other person to think deeply. The deepest conversations include vulnerability. Here's how to share authentically. Phrase 43, I'll be honest with you. This signals authenticity is coming. For example, I'll be honest with you, I've struggled with this too. Honesty creates trust. Phrase 44, this is hard for me to talk about, but. This acknowledges your discomfort. For example, this is hard for me to talk about, but I've been feeling lost lately. Naming the difficulty gives you courage. Phrase 45, I don't have all the answers, but. This shows humility. For example, I don't have all the answers, but I'm trying to figure it out. Admitting uncertainty is brave. Phrase 46, I've been afraid to admit this, but. This is deep vulnerability. For example, I've been afraid to admit this, but I don't think I'm happy in my career. Fear is a sign you're being real. Phrase 47, something I'm working on is. This shares personal growth. For example, something I'm working on is learning to set boundaries. Growth is a beautiful thing to share. Vulnerability is not weakness. It's the foundation of real connection. When you're vulnerable, others feel safe to be vulnerable too. That's when conversations become truly meaningful. Every conversation needs a good ending. Here's how to close meaningfully. Phrase 48, this conversation has given me a lot to think about. This shows the discussion had impact. For example, this conversation has given me a lot to think about regarding my priorities. It honors the exchange. Phrase 49, I really appreciate you sharing that with me. This thanks them for their openness. For example, I really appreciate you sharing that with me about your family. Gratitude deepens connection. Phrase 50, I'm glad we could talk about this. This is simple but warm. For example, I'm glad we could talk about this. It means a lot. It validates the conversation's importance. Phrase 51, let's continue this conversation another time. This suggests ongoing dialogue. For example, let's continue this conversation another time. I'd love to hear more. Deep conversations don't have to end. They can be part of an ongoing relationship. Deep conversations vary across cultures. In some cultures, directness is valued. In others, indirect communication is preferred. Personal questions might be welcome in one culture, but too forward in another. Here are some tips. Pay attention to the other person's comfort level. If they seem hesitant, don't push. Start with less personal topics. Build trust gradually. In professional settings, be more formal. Use phrases like, I'm curious about your perspective, rather than what keeps you up at night. With friends, you can be more casual. Always respect boundaries. Not everyone wants deep conversations. And that's okay. The key is reading the situation. Use your emotional intelligence. Adapt these phrases to your context. Now let's talk about practice. Learning phrases is just the beginning. You need to use them. Write down 3 phrases that resonated with you today. For each phrase, write an example from your own life. How could you use it this week? Stand in front of a mirror. Practice saying phrases with natural intonation. Pay attention to your facial expressions. Body language matters in deep conversations. Set a goal for this week. Try to have one deeper conversation than usual. Use at least 3 phrases from today. Notice how the conversation feels different. In your next conversation, focus on listening. Use the active listening phrases. Don't think about what you'll say next. Just listen and respond authentically. Practice makes progress. You don't need to be perfect. Just be present and genuine. We've covered so much today. Over 50 powerful phrases for deep conversations. But remember, phrases are just tools. The real magic is in your intention. Do you genuinely care about the other person? Are you truly curious about their experience? Deep conversations come from the heart. These phrases simply help you express what's already there. Use them naturally. Don't force them. Let them flow in the moment. Some conversations will be easier than others. That's normal. Keep practicing. Keep showing up with curiosity and care. The more you practice, the more comfortable you'll become. And the richer your relationships will be. Deep conversations create meaningful connections. They help us understand ourselves and others. They make life richer and more interesting. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope this podcast has given you valuable tools. Tools for connecting more deeply with people in your life. Remember, you can listen to this episode again. Take notes on phrases that speak to you, and start using them in your daily life. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it. Share it with other English learners. Share it with anyone who wants to improve their conversations. Your support means everything. Before we go, I want to leave you with one thought. The quality of your life depends on the quality of your relationships. And the quality of your relationships depends on the quality of your conversations. So invest in this skill. Learn to have deep, meaningful conversations. It will change your life. Thank you again for listening. Keep learning, keep growing, and keep connecting. Until next time, take care.